Well, for the first time in many weeks, Dolton trustees and Mayor Tiffany Henyard held a public meeting together, but not at Village Hall.
And Micah, tonight was a special board meeting because business has not gotten done at 2 previous meetings. So that's some progress there. But this meeting was not without its fair share of tension.
Let's talk about one of the most jaw-dropping, scandal-filled stories you've probably never heard of, unless you live in Dolton, Illinois. Meet Tiffany Henyard, the so-called super mayor of Dolton, who has been running the small town into the ground while managing to rack up enough drama and controversy to fill an entire season of a reality show. And trust us, this story has everything: corruption, financial mismanagement, petty rivalries, and even a landlord trying to evict her. So buckle up, because this tale of small town politics might just blow your mind.
A Dolton home that she leased to Mayor Tiffany Henyard has filed eviction papers. She says Henyard has not paid her rent, and now she wants her.
So who exactly is Tiffany Henyard? Well, she was elected as the mayor of Dolton back in 2021, and almost immediately, things started going downhill. From the beginning, Henyard presented herself as a no-nonsense leader determined to bring about change and clean up the town. But instead of cleaning things up, it seems like she's been making a mess so big that even the FBI has gotten involved. Let's start with one of the most recent bombshells. Lori Lightfoot, the former mayor of Chicago, was hired by Dolton's trustees to investigate Henyard's handling of the town's finances. And the findings, absolutely shocking. Under Henyard's leadership, the town's general fund balance went from a healthy surplus of over $5 million in 2022 to a deficit of nearly $7 million by 2024. How? Well, according to the investigation, Henyard has been spending taxpayer money like it's monopoly cash on things like lavish trips, fancy hotels, and even personal shopping sprees. Oh, and then there's the matter of millions owed to vendors. We're talking about checks printed but never sent out, unpaid bills stacking up, and of course the massive overtime payments to a couple of police officers who seem to be more focused on protecting Henyard than the actual residents of Dolton.
Now she's teasing a big announcement that she claims will result in some of her opponents being arrested and charged.
One of the most mind-boggling details from Lightfoot's report was the discovery that Henyard had racked up tens of thousands of dollars in charges on village credit cards. And this isn't your typical office supply spending, folks. We're talking about $43,000 on Amazon in just one day. $43,000. That's not a typo. And that's just one example. There were also charges at places like Wayfair and Walgreens, with no receipts provided for most of these purchases. You have to wonder what on earth was she buying with all that money? And why wasn't anyone asking questions sooner? Well, it turns out that Henyard has been doing everything she can to avoid those questions. In fact, she's been so determined to keep her critics at bay that she's reportedly changed the locks at Village Hall more than once, making it difficult for trustees to even access the building. And when the heat really started to turn up, she didn't hesitate to bring in criminal defense attorneys to accompany her to village board meetings. Yes, you heard that right, criminal defense attorneys. It's like a scene straight out of a crime drama.
Henyard's landlord showed up here to see her tenant in person after she says Henyard has been dodging both her and rent payments for months.
And speaking of crime dramas, let's talk about the police officers who have been cashing in thanks to Henyard's leadership. Lightfoot's report revealed that 2 officers received more in overtime pay than their actual salaries. One officer with a salary of just over $87,000 received $114,800 in overtime. Another officer, whose salary was $73,515, made $102,077 in overtime. These aren't small discrepancies, they're massive red flags. Yet, despite all of this, Henyard insists that she's doing everything for the people. But here's where things get really wild. At one point, Henyard fired back at her critics during a public meeting, claiming that people were only attacking her because she's a black woman in power. She went on a rant, accusing her opponents of being grandstanders and even scolding her fellow trustees for daring to question her. "You all should be ashamed of yourselves because you all are black," she said. "And you all sitting up here beating and attacking a black woman that's in power." It was a bold move, to say the least, and one that didn't exactly win her any new fans.
All this point the finger to Tiffany or allow me, I'm over it. Now it's time for me.
It's hard to keep track of all the scandals swirling around Henyard, but one thing is clear. Her time as mayor has been anything but smooth sailing. The town is millions of dollars in debt, vendors aren't getting paid, and residents are furious. In fact, one woman, Andrea Mackay, summed up the feelings of many Dolton residents when she said, "My reaction was, I am devastated. I am devastated that this woman came into our town and spent all of our tax money. We have senior citizens that can't even afford basic necessities. It's a heartbreaking situation, and it's only getting worse." Now, if you thought things couldn't possibly get any messier, think again. Henyard is also facing an eviction lawsuit. Yep, you heard that right, the mayor of Dolton is being evicted from her own home. According to the landlord, Henyard and her boyfriend, Kamal Woods, haven't paid rent since August, despite the fact that they're both pulling in hefty salaries. Henyard alone earns nearly $300,000 a year from her roles as mayor and supervisor of Thornton Township. So why can't she pay her rent?
So now I have to pay a special process server in order to get them served, which is more fees for me.
The landlord, Janetta Hull, has been trying to serve Henyard with eviction papers, but it hasn't been easy. Henyard and Woods have reportedly changed the locks on the house, making it impossible for Hull to even get in. And when confronted about the unpaid rent, Woods apparently told Hull that he couldn't afford the $200 rent increase that had been implemented to cover rising property taxes. Let's just pause for a moment to reflect on that Henyard and her boyfriend, who together make over $300,000 a year, can't afford an extra $200 in rent. Something doesn't add up. Of course, Henyard has denied any wrongdoing, both in her personal finances and in her role as mayor. She's even gone so far as to suggest that she'll seek the arrest of her political opponents, though it's unclear what crimes she thinks they've committed.
I will be seeking arrests for individuals involved. I will be pressing charges.
In a rambling 90-minute Facebook Live video, Henyard promised to press charges against those who have been pointing fingers at her, accusing them of engaging in a power and money grab. But as usual, she didn't provide any concrete details or evidence to back up her claims. It's just more of the same from a mayor who seems to be in way over her head. Now, let's talk about the community's response to all of this. Dolton residents have had enough. They've been showing up to village board meetings to grill Henyard, demanding answers about the town's financial situation and her personal spending habits. One resident even asked, "Why won't you step down?" It's a fair question given the state of the town under her leadership. But Henyard isn't going down without a fight. In fact, she's already announced that she's running for re-election in 2025. Yes, you heard that right, despite everything that's happened. Henyard is confident that she'll win another term as mayor.
You are a clown. We will continue to speak out against wrongdoing. Why won't you step down?
And why wouldn't she be confident? After all, this is a woman who's built her entire political career on bold moves and even bolder rhetoric. She's already passed a controversial salary plan that would cut her pay by nearly 90% if someone else wins the next election. But if she's re-elected, her salary stays the same. It's a classic power play designed to discourage anyone from running against her. And while it might seem like a desperate move, it's one that could very well work in her favor. But while Henyard continues to dig in her heels, Dolton's problems aren't going away. In fact, they're only getting worse. The town is facing a water crisis, with frequent water main breaks that Henyard blames on budget cuts. Meanwhile, 4 people were recently shot in Dolton, and residents are growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of police presence in their neighborhoods. Trustee Brittany Norwood has been vocal about this issue, pointing out that Henyard has assigned a sizable security detail to herself, while the rest of the town is left to fend for itself. "We're not saying police aren't doing a good job," Norwood said. "We're saying you're assigning all of them to be with you when they should be out here protecting the residents so we can all feel safe." It's a sentiment shared by many in the community.
Thornton Township tonight as another board meeting got canceled because of a lack of a quorum.
And that came after a disagreement about where to hold the meeting as trustees expressed concerns for their safety.
And it's not just the residents who are fed up. Henyard's colleagues on the village board have had enough as well. In fact, some of them have taken legal action against her, accusing her of forging checks and withholding financial records. Trustee Jason House, who is running against Henyard in the next election, has been one of her most vocal critics. He's part of a group of trustees who have formed a slate called the Clean House Team, and they're determined to unseat Henyard and restore order to the town. But Henyard isn't backing down. She's made it clear that she's in this for the long haul, and she's not going down without a fight. She's even comparing herself to former President Donald Trump, claiming that she'll win re-election in a landslide just like he did. It's a bold comparison, to say the least, and one that suggests Henyard sees herself as a political outsider fighting against the establishment. Whether or not that's true is up for debate. But one thing is certain, her time in office has been anything but boring.
No one, and I repeat, no one can run circles around me when it comes to public service.
So what's next for Dolton? Well, that's anyone's guess. The town's financial situation is dire, the FBI investigation is ongoing, and Henyard's re-election campaign is just getting started. It's going to be a wild ride, and one that Dolton residents will be watching closely. In the meantime, Henyard's landlord is still waiting for that rent check, and the residents of Dolton are still waiting for answers. But here's the real question. Will Tiffany Henyard continue to hold on to power, or is her time as super mayor finally coming to an end? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more updates on this wild saga.